Dear friends of Grey Rhino, I'm very happy to be seeing y'all once again.
Hi, Kevi. Good afternoon. Very happy to see you again.
Afternoon, Adi.
Very happy to see you. And today, I think it's very important day that we wanted to know more about what is happening with China tech companies. So, Kevi, China tech companies have declined by more than 40% since their peak in February this year, due to the crackdown by the Chinese government, of course. And starting with the halting of the record-smashing IPO of Ant Financials in November last year, and also the recent banning of Didi's app from the country's app stores as well. So could you share with us what exactly is the Chinese government concerned about?
Sure, Adi. In fact, this is not the first time the Chinese government is clamping down on its tech sector. From time to time, they also have certain company-specific clampdown. For example, a few years ago, it was on Tencent, where they stopped the approval of their games. However, this time round is a lot broader. Exactly what is it about? Maybe let me share what is it from their own words first, which was on the 10th of November 2020, one day before Alibaba's Singles Day. They set out the guidelines towards their tech regulation. Let me show you. Okay, the first thing is about restraining monopolies. Because these tech companies has been growing huge, and some of their practices, like they call it predatory pricing, which means to sell at a price that is below their cost, and hence this stamps out the competitor, or entering into exclusive contract with their vendors, such that their competitors do not have access to those vendors. And the government wants to stamp out this to promote competition. Secondly, is to govern Fintech. Okay, because Alipay and Wechat Pay together now makes up 94% of China's mobile payments, which is huge. And the Chinese government needs to have control over the financial system. As they are now getting so huge, they are subordinating their Chinese banks, and hence they want to regulate the Fintech to make sure that they are on the same set of rules as the Chinese banks. And thirdly, it's about protecting data. Because, for example, for Didi's IPO, the two largest shareholder of Didi is actually SoftBank and Uber. Both are foreigners, and hence they have a concern. Your two largest owners are foreigners. Will there be data leakages? And since there's so much data of the Chinese citizens, they're afraid that it lands into foreign hands. And hence, these are the three things that they laid out about this regulation. However, what do I think they are really trying to regulate? Okay, so let me share. In fact, about monopolies and the data privacy, it's never been on the mind, in my view, of the Chinese government. But China has been full of monopolies. Okay, I think more than a lot of other countries. And they've allowed it to continue. And in China, there's not much kind of data privacy. Of course, if the government has it, it's not a concern. So what then is really the main concern? I think the first one is the ultimate shareholder of Chinese companies is always the Chinese government. Okay, so they're ultimate shareholders, and hence the corporation who works there needs to know who's boss. Who is the boss? Okay, and hence I think companies who obeys the Chinese government will tend to have an easier way, even in this tech regulation. For example, when you slap with fines, Alibaba's fine is way more than the rest. So companies like Alibaba, where Jack Ma spoke up against the Chinese government, or Didi, who went IPO despite the government's against the government's wishes, I think they will probably be the heaviest, get the heaviest penalty. For the rest who are willing to work more closely, I think they will be let off with a smaller penalty. But if they're huge, I think they will still be penalized, because otherwise it will be too unfair. Okay, so I think that's the first thing, to show who is the boss. And secondly, I think the Chinese government would not want to kill the tech sector, because this is where China is going. China is in a tech supremacy competition with the US. And it needs all these innovative tech companies to help it thrive. Yeah. So I don't think it wants to kill its tech sector. So I see that you got to understand also where did the Chinese tech sector came from. It came from where there was almost very loose regulations. So now it's from a place where there's very low to loose regulations to putting a framework of regulation. Yeah. So I think in the meantime, it might seem there's a lot of hoo-ha. I think over time, the tech companies will get used to it. People will get used to it. Yeah. It's just having a framework to regulate these companies without killing them. I think in the long term, the government will still want this tech company to be thriving. Yeah, because that is where the Chinese national interest is as well. Yeah. Hence, I think this is a temporary intense period. I think it's going to pass.
I understand. Thanks for sharing your insights, Kewi. And the next question is, how do you think this will play out?
I think after this period of seemingly intense scrutiny, as I said, we came from a low base. Yeah, so this seems like a big move. As I said, over time, I think this will simmer off. Yeah, and these new environments will be the new environment for the future. However, I still think the current tech companies will still be thriving given their importance and also their competitive advantage they have been building up. Okay, of course, I think those who are more obedient will probably thrive better than those who is trying to be a rebel. However, I think some changes are to be expected of these tech companies. Firstly, I think they will go overseas more. Let me share with you this. Okay, this is showing the percentage of domestic and overseas active users of Wechat, Alibaba, and TikTok. So you can see that these tech giants are largely big in their own turf in China. Like Wechat has 92% in China users, Alibaba 80%. They are not going very much overseas, except TikTok. So I think China has the tendency to support national champions. For example, when TikTok had issues with in India, China government actually went to help them to go overseas. And hence, I think they will be wanting the big companies like Tencent and Alibaba to, instead of just being big in their home country, to also go overseas. Yeah. Let me show you the next slide. Again, like JD.com, 100% in China, whereas companies like Huawei, Haier, Lenovo, which is a lot more going overseas. In fact, the Chinese government supports them. So I think this is something the tech giants will be looking at doing. Two factors, given the increased regulation, and that I think there will be some pressure by the government for them to be moving out and expanding beyond the shores. So I think they will be going more overseas, more internationalized. And secondly, I think without a doubt, the Fintech arms, as I shared, of the big companies, especially Tencent and Alibaba, I think going forward will be regulated like a bank. So I think that will have certainly curtailed them a bit under the same umbrella as the banking regulation. So I think it will curtail them a bit. It won't kill them, but of course it will slow down the fintech part of their business. Okay, so as a whole, I think the tech companies will survive and still thrive going forward. So there will be more regulations in place. So but the growth might be slowing down slightly in the home country, and they're likely to internationalize more. So that's where I think it will play out for the big tech companies.
Understand. Thanks a lot, Kay, for sharing. So now the most important question is, do you think in the current situation, then the tech companies are the opportunity or actually a risk now? And what are you doing for your portfolio with regards of this China tech?
The Chinese tech companies' valuation is currently below their average. Okay, so I think now could be representing an opportunities to be buying in. However, how should we be doing it? Maybe let's take a look at history. Okay, a few years ago, as I shared, where Tencent had a halting of their games. And what happened to their share price? It actually corrected 45%. Subsequently, it took about 6 months to a year, and the game's approval resumed. And Tencent's business actually resumed without much of a dent. So if you look back at the period when the share price fell 45%, it was actually an opportunity. So today, I don't see it's very much different from then. So I think it's currently a dark cloud that will pass us. And when we pass us, it will be rainbow again. And I think we need to grab this opportunity when the prices of these companies, which I'm still favorable of their future, to start buying in. However, I don't recommend, or I wouldn't be doing myself, buying the entire position now. I will probably start with somewhere about 40-50% of my intended position, and to buy more if it continues to drop. Eventually, I think these Chinese tech companies will probably make up about 10% of my portfolio if the price continues to drop to allow me to buy in. Most investing is like that. Investing in times of pessimism is always painful in the short term, but it's always fruitful in the long term. And hence, I think to invest in the Chinese tech today, we really need to have a long-term view. And then that this company will continue to be around, will continue to thrive. And hence, this period could be a period of great opportunities to be buying in. So that's Adi, how I will position my own portfolio.
Thanks, Kiwi. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insight with us. I guess all of our Grey Rhino friends here also can learn and understand what are the next steps that they need to do, especially in the China tech companies that they maybe are viewing to buy at the moment as well. Thank you very much always for your sharing and your time. Until we meet up again, Kiwi. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Adi. My pleasure.
If you'd like to be listening regularly to the Grey Rhino YouTube to gain more financial knowledge and also investment wisdom, do subscribe below to the Grey Rhino YouTube channel and remember to turn on your notification.